What's up, everybody? Welcome to another World Cup recap here on Touchline Talk. Only one more day to go, and the group stage is over, and we're on to the round of 16. Before I jump in to today's two groups, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the rest of the videos I will be putting out throughout the rest of the tournament as we reach the knockout stage. And you can scan this QR code that is right next to me to go check out my Substack, where you can also become a subscriber to get all of my written content, World Cup notebooks, 5 things from the week, my European Soccer Top 25, all that good stuff delivered directly to your inbox. This was a incredibly entertaining day. It finally felt like we got the drama that all of these group stage finales had been setting up for. Yes, of course, you had these high-profile games, winner in for the U.S., for example, but the back-and-forth twists and turns, what's going to happen, the 5 different sets of teams advancing in the span of 90 minutes, depending on who's scoring the goals. We finally got that today, courtesy of this group right here, starting with Japan beating Spain 2-1. Spain definitely on top early, not just possession, but chance creation, go ahead. And it looks like Spain are going to more or less cruise to first place in this group. They were in really good position, even if they got a draw, to finish top. And they took the lead, looked pretty comfortable. And then halftime happens, and for the second time in this tournament, Japan become a completely different team after halftime, scored 2 goals in a flash, and all of a sudden, Spain are losing. And quite honestly, Japan were not all that troubled after they took the lead. Now, they didn't create all that much after they took the lead, and Spain certainly had some chances, but it never felt like this game got out of Japan's control once they assumed control of it. And yes, one of your talking points coming out of this game is going to be that second goal that turned out to be so important in this group. I've already seen the screenshots of the ball looking like it's out. Went to a VAR review. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Here is what I would like to say. On something like that in particular, where it's not even really a judgment call, it's whether the ball went out of bounds or not. Yes, it's a little bit gray, it's not perfect, but everybody knows what the rule is to determine whether the ball went out or not. I'm going to choose to trust Mark Clattenburg, who said on the broadcast, I looked at it the first time, I thought the ball was clearly out, I looked at some other replays, it is not clear to me, so I have no issue with the call standing. And I'm going to trust the other angles that are out there that I personally have not seen yet, and come to the conclusion that that was not as obvious as the one screenshot everybody is using, the one angle we saw made it look. I refuse to believe that this was just a completely blown call. I'm going to trust Mark Clattenburg, who's been doing this forever. You can distort things based on angles, based on the way it's framed, all of that stuff. It certainly looked out to me. That was my first reaction too. But it's not a judgment call. Somebody was looking at it. It's not like this is, everything goes to VAR. Please remember that. Sometimes it seems like we forget that. I'm choosing to trust it was the right call. That there was enough doubt based on all of the angles put together, not just the one, because there have been plenty of other examples where something looks really obvious from one angle and you take a look at a different angle and it becomes much less clear. And I will always err on the side of, if you are not 100% sure, then stick to the definition of clear and obvious and do not overturn it. If it is not a blatant, obvious mistake, and I'm just not convinced this was. So Japan go through. The other point I want to make here. Substitutions in the second half for Japan included Ritsu Duan, who was superb, made a huge difference with those, contributing to those goals. Takuma Asano, who also plays in the Bundesliga, and Takahiro Tomiyasu, who gets on the field consistently for Arsenal. Yes, I know he's not a typical starter, but he's playing in the Europa League. He's coming on as a substitute. He gets playing time for the team currently winning the Premier League. Those players came on in a game Japan needed to get something from as substitutes. No. Are they as talented player for player as Spain and Germany? No. But I'm just not stunned by how well this team performed. And I said this after the Germany game, and I'll say it again, because now one of those two nations has gotten to the round of 16 in consecutive World Cups on the men's side. One of those teams nearly made the quarterfinals of 2018, and neither of those teams were Germany. This Japan team is this good. And I said it from the very beginning of my Japan preview when I was talking about this group. If somebody makes some mistakes and doesn't perform up to the level they are capable of, Japan is going to sit there, capitalize it, and get out of this group. And we'll get to Germany in a second here. I didn't think that was going to happen. In another group, I would have picked Japan to go through. I didn't in this one. I really thought we were going to see the two European teams step up. And quite simply, we didn't. And so here's Japan, who slightly even exceeded my high expectations for them. And just think about the conversation we're having if that Costa Rica game goes differently and they find a way to score. Or find a way to score and don't give up that strange goal. The points they dropped came against Costa Rica. Don't forget that. This Japan team legitimately is this good and can absolutely get to a quarterfinal and can absolutely cause trouble for any team left in this tournament. Then we get to Germany, the other side of this. Ultimately, a 4-2 win over Costa Rica that does not mean anything in the grand scheme of things in terms of who's going through, because both Japan and Spain are advancing because of the result in that game, and specifically because of Spain's massive goal differential advantage because of the beatdown they put on Costa Rica. But a couple things to mention here. There was a moment in which Costa Rica led in this game due pretty much exclusively to mistakes from Germany, whether that's the center backs. Costa Rica also had a chance right before halftime, and then the second goal, Manuel Neuer just kind of comes out and flails at the ball, doesn't get it, and it ends up in the back of the net. Just all kinds of self-inflicted issues by Germany. To the point I was making about if somebody doesn't show up, if somebody fails to deliver and opens the door, Japan is going to walk in. That was Germany. Now, they do come back and win this game, and so right up until the very end, had Spain scored to equalize, you're having a different conversation about how this group turns out, but Japan held on, and so Germany are out. I want to take one more moment here to talk about how good Jamal Musiala is. How he didn't score in this game, I don't know. He did everything possible except actually put the ball into the net. He was sensational in this tournament. He was Germany's best player in this tournament. Kai Havertz does come on and score twice. Niklas Füllkrug made another notable contribution off the bench. Why he didn't start this game, I'm not sure. But I want to keep this focused on Musiala just for a second, because obviously not going to talk about him again until we get back to club season. I just walk away once again more convinced he is the best young player in the world. Go back and watch what he was able to do in this game, and I know the stat sheet isn't going to show it. He wasn't the guy who got all the goals. He had his opportunities. He couldn't catch a break. And ultimately, Germany overall just were not good enough to. We talk so much about the number 9 position. Can they find the guy to score goals? Is Kai Havertz doing enough? And the story coming out of this is not the number 9 position. Füllkrug was good. Havertz was good. You got plenty of contributions from your attackers. It was at the back. And to a certain extent, it was Manuel Neuer. But heading into, Euros and sort of looking forward for this team, the number 9 is still a concern. But the even bigger issue is you got to figure out that defense. And being so reliant on guys playing for a Borussia Dortmund team that, while they're better defensively this year, have not been as good defensively as I thought they would be, is a concern. And Antonio Rudiger, as good as he is, as good as he was for Chelsea last season, still has, every once in a while, he's got a tendency to make a mistake. And so you put those two things together and you're asking for trouble. And I know I didn't pay enough attention to that at the beginning of this tournament. So I wanted to recognize it before we sort of close the door on Germany here, as they are out in the round, or the group stage, once again. Joining Germany on the list of disappointing European teams headed home is Belgium. Kevin De Bruyne was much, much better in this game against Croatia that ultimately ends in a draw. Created some good opportunities. He didn't blow me away and sort of jump off the screen, but he looked much more like Kevin De Bruyne. And he absolutely had to if Belgium were going to have a chance to win this game. The story here, though, is those second half chances that Romelu Lukaku could not put away. And, I was texting with a friend of mine and I said, you got to at least attribute some of this to rust and the fact that he hasn't been playing, right? But that explanation only goes so far. He could have not played for a year. And just, would expect him to just walk onto a field and be able to put those chances away. That's how clear cut, that's how good they were. And it wasn't just one. If it was one, then I could look at it and say, if he's in form, if he's consistently playing, started for Inter in the lead up to this tournament, started from the get-go for Belgium, I could say I can point to the fact that he's rusty and not getting regular minutes at this moment and say I can use that as the explanation for one miss. But it was at least 3? And it just seemed like they kind of got worse and worse. Every single one he missed. And one goal would have changed everything. And Belgium just couldn't get it, despite the fact that they were much better in this game. Ultimately, overall through the 3 games, they just didn't deserve to go through. They didn't deserve that win against Canada. They were not good against Morocco. And they were better in this game, but had to take their chances because of the situation they found themselves in, failed to do so. And you can make a real argument. They should have been at 0 points heading into this game and not been in the position they were, where they still had a really good chance to go through. Ultimately, they can't get it done. Croatia, not particularly great in this game. Do enough defensively to come away with second place in this group and go through, which is more than some of these European nations can say. But they have not looked particularly inspiring either. The best team in this group has been Morocco, and Morocco deserved to top it, which they do with a 2-1 win over Canada. The big question for this Canada team heading into the World Cup was, at least for me, defensively, can they hold up? I had no concerns about that midfield, about those attackers. The defense is where they don't have that high-level experience, where individually just their talent level is not anywhere near as good, and it showed. I really like Alistair Johnson. He appears to be on his way to Celtic. He didn't have a particularly great tournament. The center backs in particular, and it was, you saw it against Croatia, just opening up all over the place. This game was more just the mistakes. Hakim Ziyech ends up finishing off the first one to give Morocco an extremely early lead. Then you get the second goal on what I'm convinced is going to be the pass of the tournament from Achraf Hakimi. I mean, that ball was absolutely brilliant. And Canada do get a goal back, apply some pressure at the end of the game. It was a pretty good performance from Canada, all things considered. They were nowhere near as bad as their record is going to indicate in this tournament. And it's really unfortunate because I really like this team and I really thought they had a chance to get out of this group. And I feel justified in that based on what we've seen from Belgium and Croatia. But the most consistent team, game 1 to game 3, has been Morocco. And the one thing I will say about Morocco, this team has always been talented. There were just some vibes that were off, I felt like, especially watching them against the U.S. in the build-up a couple windows before the World Cup. And then you make you sort of scratch everything, get Hakim Ziyech, Nusam Zawawi back in there. And they just feel like a completely different team. They feel like a team that is much more together, much more cohesive, on the same page. And so here they are topping a group. Never in a million years would I have thought they topped this group. But if you would have told me we were getting a cohesive, confident version of Morocco with Hakim Ziyech in the fold, and even not exactly knowing what to expect from Morocco, I believed from the beginning and still believe now this was the deepest group from 1 to 4. That Canada was as good as any third team, maybe outside of Japan, and Morocco was the best fourth team in any group, maybe outside of 1 or 2. But I probably would give that honor to Morocco. I didn't see it ending this way. But this was a group with 4 really good teams. One of them performed more consistently than the other ones. That's the one that topped the group. One of them was disappointing and was missing a key striker in Romelu Lukaku for most of the tournament. Croatia just found a way. Canada didn't capitalize on their opportunity. But this could have gone. I mean, you can make a case for all 4 teams and why they should have advanced out of this group. And normally you can't say that, but it's just a testament to how difficult this was. And again, credit to Morocco for navigating these other 3 teams the way that they did to finish, not only be competitive, not only get out of the group, but finish on top. And so now it's creating a really interesting situation heading into the round of 16 because some of this stuff is just not going the way anybody, including myself, expected. And so you've got some different we got Morocco and Japan topping groups here. And so once we get the round of 16 finalized, that bracket is going to look much different than everybody expected. And there are going to be some teams that are going to really benefit from that and some teams that are going to be really hurt from that in terms of your path to the semifinals, your path to the final. I'm just going to wait until we know exactly what... If today taught us anything, I'm going to wait and see until we get these final teams in here when the group stage finishes up with those final 2 groups on Friday before I start talking about matchups because who knows what's going to happen here. But that is all for today's World Cup recap. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.